Failure doesn't have to be the end. It's just part of that process. When you fail, it just means you're pushing your limits. You're stepping outside of your comfort zone. Every time you do that, you're gaining insight, resilience, wisdom. So learn, act, fail, repeat. That can eventually lead to learn, succeed, repeat.
That's it. And the succeed, as you said, you get insight, you get wisdom each time you fail because you get to know why you're failing and
That's exactly right.
fix the why. Welcome, Trent. Welcome to the Mind Capsules Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Is there something good or energizing that you've been through this week?
Anytime you get to wake up and plant both feet on the ground, it's good, right?
We look back and celebrate the things that we've achieved, even the smallest wins. This podcast is all about transformation, and I know you live that daily. And I'm looking forward to this particular conversation. Okay, so before we dive in, I just want to introduce you to my audience. So today's guest is someone who lives and breathes transformation, not just in theory, but in practice, leadership, and experience. Trent Carter is a recognized nurse practitioner, addiction recovery expert, healthcare entrepreneur, and the founder of Renew Health, New Mexico's top-rated recovery clinic. What started as a vision to provide better addiction care has become a statewide movement, reshaping how we think about recovery, responsibility, and human potential. Trent is also the author of a forthcoming book, The Recovery Tool Belt, which reframes addiction as a treatable chronic illness and offers practical tools to support lasting recovery. But what makes Trent truly unique and why I'm so excited to speak with him today is that he brings together medical insight, entrepreneurial hustle, and powerful personal philosophy rooted in growth mindset and real world transformation. Whether you're navigating personal change, supporting someone through recovery, or simply hungry for deeper clarity and courage, this conversation is for you. Trent Carter, you're welcome to the Mind Capsules Podcast.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to be here.
You've experienced transformation both personally and professionally.
Yeah, great question. So, mindset is so important for anything. It doesn't matter what you're wanting to do, what you're wanting to accomplish. It all starts with mindset. And look, I'm a huge proponent of betting on yourself. If you can make yourself a more valuable person, whether professionally, personal mindset. So, for me, that's exactly what I did. I went out on a limb. I was told what I was doing was very bold. I was told what I was doing is honorable, but good luck. Right. And here we are about 4 years later, and it's been wildly successful, and we've
Awesome.
only expanded our reach. Thank you so much. And it comes from taking action. You've got to put yourself out there, right? And take action. If it's just a thought, well, it might be a really good thought, but it's never going to turn into anything more if you don't take action and put yourself out there. So it really is risk reward. But if you're hearing about something like let's say somebody tells you a great investment in the stock market, hey, by the time everybody's hearing about it, well, you're probably not going to get that massive payoff versus the earlier investors. And that's what this is too. It's putting yourself out there and betting on yourself and doing something that other folks are scared to do.
100%. I mean, I'm a huge fan of mindset shift. I mean, my book is called Mind Capsules, Antidotes for the Right Attitude. And I think it all starts in the mind, whatever we decide to do. And I believe there is this great passage that says, whatever a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So it's important, like you're saying, that it all starts in the mind. So what you're thinking is what you will become. So that's very important to know. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. And many people associate addiction with weakness, yet your approach reframes it as a chronic illness. How can changing our mindset around addiction unlock better outcomes for individuals and for the society? Topic for me, because I'm so sorry, Trent. This is a very interesting topic for me because I've never actually delved into anything medical or anything to do with addictions. I'm a mentor myself, a life mentor, and this would be very interesting to hear from your perspective because I've never actually dealt with addictions, even though I have dealt with a lot of people who had issues, but it's so important to hear your perspective on addictions.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to get into it.
Okay.
So, if we truly want to change the landscape here, if we
Mhm.
really want to make a difference, if we truly do want to flatten that curve and then see it go down, right? We've
Mhm.
got to destigmatize this. It is a chronic condition. We've got to quit isolating these folks. We need to understand, hey, it's here, it's all around. It does not discriminate. It doesn't matter who you are, if you're man, woman, age, what your occupation is. Obviously, there's risk factors where some folks are at higher risk than others. Absolutely. I'm not saying there's not. But fact is, look, I've got successful attorneys that are patients. I mean, we're talking very successful, very wealthy, someone that you wouldn't think at all that I currently treat. And so all that to say, it doesn't discriminate. So if we can begin to destigmatize this, understand it, and accept these folks for what it is, then we can truly make a change. And I'm not talking a little change, I'm talking a vast landscape change to where it is at national level, state level, community level, local level. And I really think that's what it's going to take if we want to see, something sustainable that truly is going to make a lasting impact.
Okay, so I mean, from what you're saying, it's the stigma is there, but then from my personal experience, I've encountered fear of people with addiction because of what they can do. So how can someone overcome the fear of people with addiction? They might not have any stigma towards them, or they might not like judge them or try and kind of separate them from society, but because they're fearful of what they can do. I mean, years ago, I worked in an institute that had people who were suffering addiction, and the institute had locked doors. I mean, every passage, every corridor, every floor, you had to carry a key around your waist. And I was very fearful. I mean, I didn't feel like, they are like lower than society or lower than the rest of us, but I was more gripped with fear than anything. How can we overcome that if we're not
So
stigmatizing them?
I love this question. And
Mm.
it's true. This scenario, the example that you just gave, it is true. When someone's taking something that's mind altering, they're literally out of their minds. And then so often the behavior that's associated with that to support the habit. So theft and beating someone up to rob from them or steal from them,
Mhm.
it's very common. And I think that, well, first and foremost, you've got to protect yourself, right? You do, because these are very real
Okay.
threats. But if we can increase the resources that are available for these folks and get them the necessary treatment and the necessary help that they need, I have seen these exact people that we just gave the scenarios of completely turn around. And whenever you're not having to chase that drug, you're not having to get money to then go and buy that drug, because the problem is if they're not taking it, then they go into withdrawal and they're extremely uncomfortable and they're desperate. So they will do anything they can to get their hands on it, whether it's the drug itself or money to go and purchase. And so if we can take that away, then oftentimes those behaviors that follow don't have to be there. I've got one patient in particular. This is a little
Mhm.
bit different than what we were just talking about, but I'll go
Okay.
ahead and tell the story anyways. So one
Okay.
patient, he had been in prison for most of his life. He was upper 20s and he had been incarcerated for, we'll call it 10 years, most of his adult life, I should say. And coming in, he looks scary. He's got multiple tattoos. He kind of had the look that would be very intimidating, but
Okay.
his tone, his body language was very soft. He was very nice. He was actually pleasant to be around. So walking into the room, you kind of think one thing, but then you get to talking to him and it was a little different. Anyways, the first meeting that we had, that initial introduction, he described himself to me as a monster, the things that he has
Oh, wow.
done to survive. And he's like, look, whenever I was incarcerated, he said, it's a war zone in there. And it's nothing like what you could ever imagine being out here. And then he asked me, have you ever experienced it? I'm like, no, I've never been incarcerated before. And so he said, I was a monster and it's what I had to do to survive. And that is, I've been stabbed multiple times. I've stabbed other people. I've stabbed a guard. He's telling me these stories that are pretty fascinating.
Wow.
But the point that I'm getting at here is whenever we removed him from that environment, he was completely different. And whenever he came in to my office and met me, he's focused on regrowth and rebuilding, and he's trying to get a job and he's trying to do the things he can, get his driver's license and trying to do the things that he can to be a productive individual, to work on himself. And all of that to say, when you're given the resources and you change that environment, then oftentimes you're not going to see that risky behavior or the aggression that follows it.
Okay. Thank you for that. As you were saying, that just reminds me there's somebody I know personally. I've known this person for a year. They are addicted to alcohol. I mean, crazy addicted to alcohol. And to be honest with you, that's the first person ever I've met who's been that addicted. And I mean, I wasn't helping him from the standpoint that you help people. I was just trying to help him as a friend of a friend because I met him through someone else. So I tried to bring him into that environment of change, tried to help set him up with a job, trying to help set him up with, I mean, obviously lovely opportunities for him to kind of step out from that addiction, but he never took those opportunities. What do you do with someone in that position who doesn't take that help?
It can be so challenging. So first and
Mm,
foremost, you would have fallen into the support system role there, which is incredible. And it does, when you statistically, when you look at it, as someone that
mm,
has a good solid support system, their
mhm,
chance at success is exponentially higher compared to someone that has none. That said, I have found time and time again in my clinical practice, my personal experience, that someone has to find that internal motivation. I call it intrinsic motivation because
right.
as badly as you may want to do it for them, you can't, right?
Mm,
If it's a your brother, your mother, your spouse, your best friend, whatever, as bad as you may want, you just want to shake them. Let me do this, and you
that's
can't.
so true.
Yeah, but they have to want to do it. And now
Mhm,
sometimes there can be motivating factors. So I
mhm,
mean, a common one I see is, two spouses will come in and one's threatening to leave the other unless you get help. Hey, I'm leaving your butt if you don't get help, right? I see it all the time. And unless that person really wants to do it themselves, so
mhm,
many times I've seen it, they come in, they get going, they do the initial part of treatment, it's been a few weeks or a couple months or whatever, and then that, let's say in this scenario, the wife has kind of given them a little grace, kind of backed off a little bit. Well, what do you think happens? They stop showing up, right? Because it wasn't that
right.
internal motivation that they wanted.
Someone
On the
else
flip
was
side,
pushing them.
exactly, exactly. On the flip side, though, when someone comes in rather under their own, it's always under their own willpower. Usually, we get a little bit of court order stuff, but most all of my patients, I don't know, 99 something percent are going to be voluntary, meaning they wanted to come in, whether it was kind
Okay.
of a, forced voluntary or not.
But still a good number.
Sometimes, yeah, but sometimes they're on the fence. They're a
Mm,
little unsure, but they come in and all of a sudden a lot of really positive things in their life start to happen and that becomes valuable.
awesome.
And so then that can motivate, right? And all of a sudden you get the snowball
Right.
effect. So
That's
that's
it.
very common too.
Okay, that's really awesome. And sorry, I'm just going to stick with this for a bit because this is actually something I've experienced and seen. And I believe a lot of, you know, people want to know because they have, as you said, spouses, brothers, sisters or family members, friends. What if they don't have that internal motivation? Do we leave them? Because obviously, in leaving them, they can just become worse. I mean, it could just take a downward trajectory to the point of death, maybe. So, what do you do in that situation? I mean, how have you dealt with it yourself?
So it can be a very slippery slope. It can be very tricky.
Mm,
I absolutely recommend getting professional help here. Okay. Because you want to support them, but
mhm,
at a certain point, you can also enable them. And then if you
mm,
turn around and you give tough love or hard love and then you get too far away, now they feel like they don't have the support. And yeah, I mean, suicide's an option or just going deeper into whatever it is that they're
mm,
struggling with. So it's tough to find that balance. And it's tough for me to give a straight answer here because every story is different. Every
okay.
individual is different. I would say, first and foremost, if you're a loved one where you yourself aren't struggling, but you have someone very near and dear to you that is,
Mhm,
you've got to protect yourself. Okay. You've got to take care of yourself to take care of them always. So if you're a caregiver for someone, it's the same thing. People so
okay.
often get wrapped up in that they forget, they neglect themselves. They forget to take care of themselves. So you got to take care of yourself. You've got to protect yourself. Look, you've got to set boundaries. If you can set real boundaries with this
Mhm,
individual, knowing, hey, look, you are welcome anytime at my house to come by and get a warm meal at dinner time. But you have to be by yourself and you can only come into because you don't want to give them free reign of the house if you're worried that they're going to steal from you, right? And so setting very clear boundaries.
boundaries.
Yes. Saying, hey, look, I will be happy to provide transportation for you anytime we need to go to your medical visits, anytime we need to go to the pharmacy, anytime you've got a therapy session or AA, whatever it may be, right? That's a great way to support as well. I would highly advise against giving them cash or yeah, sure, just send me the receipt for the Uber and I'll pay you back some because then you don't you lose that control, right? Because if you're the one providing the ride, you know
Mhm.
exactly where they're going to. I've got a
Problem.
story of a patient that
Mhm.
she had fallen out of treatment for a couple of months, and her mother
Mhm.
called furious because we weren't treating her. And we said, well, we haven't seen her in a couple of months. She said, well, I know that's not true because I take her there every week. And so what was happening is
Right.
the mother was coming to the parking lot, the daughter was hopping out, and the mother was driving off, and she'd walk right past the office into the alleyway and have someone else
Right.
pick her up. And so
Okay.
that's where yeah, and it's not that we were refusing to treat her, she never came into our doors. And again, this voluntary, right? We can't force her. So anyways, a little bit of communication there, and then now the mother started coming to her appointments with
Right.
her, and all of a sudden, we can hold her accountable, right? Holding somebody accountable,
That's
and
it.
lo and behold, she started to progress again, and we started getting somewhere in her
Mm.
treatment journey. So there's a whole list of things that you can do, but there's a couple of just quick tips and tricks right there.
Mhm.
Put those boundaries. Look, you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to protect yourself, especially if this individual has a tendency to be volatile or aggressive or something like
Yeah.
that. Then you're going to have to handle that very delicately. But
Thank you for that. I mean, you definitely were not rumbling on because that was a good example because you just mentioned about, to get on the Uber with them, take them to the place. And then the example that you just gave is make sure that they're actually getting inside, which is like a very, very good example. Thank you for that. So, my next question to you is what role does belief in yourself, in recovery, in transformation play in long-term change for the patients that you serve?
and this,
Awesome.
I mean, it falls right back into mindset, like we talked about
Yeah.
earlier, right? Look, I'll touch on something that I just said a little
Mhm.
bit ago, a few minutes ago, where as we start to make progress, these things become very valuable, right? And so while it can be hard to start anything new, especially if it's scary or daunting, or if physically you think you're going to be uncomfortable, such as detox withdrawal, it's very challenging to get started. But if you can take that leap, if you can step out there and get going, or hey, if you want to be an entrepreneur and start your business, right? It's very uncomfortable. It's very
Very.
scary. There is zero certainty. There is no guarantee you get a return on your investment. It's hard, right? And there,
100% agree.
yes. But if you'll step out there and take
Mhm.
action, and look, you're probably going to mess up. You're going to slip up. You're going to have some failure, but you only lose when you quit, is the way I see it. You only lose when you
Yeah,
quit. If you can learn from that, and then now you can redirect, you can change your game plan, right? It's like the whole deal with the light bulb. There was 10,000 failures, except for it wasn't a failure. I learned 10,000 ways that it couldn't happen, right? And
that's
able to
it.
redirect. Yes.
Mhm.
So I think that that's got to be step one. And as we continue to put ourselves out there, we learn, you make a little bit of progress, just like you said at the very beginning when we started, it's those small wins. Those small wins start to stack
Absolutely.
up no matter how little they are, and then
Yeah,
they compound. And then you get those small wins that are daily, that are weekly, that are monthly, that can lead to a larger win on top of all the little small wins. And
that's
it's very,
correct.
very valuable. Look, it's good for the motivation, right? It's easier to stay disciplined on days that we're struggling that we don't want to, because we
Mhm.
now have this new foundation that we're operating on, which is
Mhm.
all those little small wins that stack up over time. And it makes it easier. So back to belief. It's easier to believe in yourself. It's easier to believe in the process. It's easier to trust someone that, hey, look, you can do this, try this, this, and this. Well, hey, not me. There's no way, man. That scenario doesn't apply to me. Well, it can, right?
Mhm.
And it can take time. It can take time. But over time, we tend to stack up those little wins. A quote that I really, really like is the harder you work, the less impossible a goal becomes, right? You get started, man, there's no way. There's
I
just
love
no way
that.
that can happen.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. You put in some time, you put in some effort, you get knocked down a couple times, you keep coming back, and all of a sudden that impossible goal is a little more attainable.
That's it. Well, I mean, you've taken the hit already. I mean, speaking of quote, that reminds me of one that I like, which says, "The more you do, the more you can do."
Mhm.
I don't know if you've heard of that quote before. So it's
I
kind of
love
in
that.
line with what you're saying now. The more you do, the more you can do.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
awesome.
Yep.
So, my next question to you, What advice would you give to someone stuck in a pattern, whether it's addiction, toxic thinking, fear of failure, who wants to transform their life? What advice would you give them?
So much of this, I feel like I'm just starting to repeat myself here, but taking action, right? It is so hard when you're stuck in this cyclical event, just this cycle that's just repeat, repeat, repeat. And well, you've got to break that mold. And how do you do that? So educate yourself, right? There's so many free resources out there online in your community. Put yourself out there. Like if you have a greater skill set, whether you're greater at a certain skill or you have more skills, you're going to be a more valuable individual. And again, we're talking personally or professionally. This could fall into a relationship. This could fall into something where you're trying to get a job. I'm a huge proponent of taking care of yourself, physically active, right? Eat clean or eat well. You don't have to eat super clean, right? I think if you eat good 80%, 85% of the time, that gives a little room to go enjoy the Snickers bar or whatever. But, get in the gym, take care of yourself. You're going to feel better. You're going to
Absolutely.
have more energy. You'll have more sleep. You'll have more confidence. Learning to communicate with individuals is going to be huge. But again, you've got to take the action. You got to put yourself out there. So I'll go into another quote. And this was actually one that I kind of coined. I was speaking with someone and I started rambling this. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I ought to write that down. That's pretty good. But it's learn, act, fail, repeat. So if you can follow that, right? If you learn about something, then you act on it. Well, yeah, failure is going to happen. But if we repeat that, eventually that can turn into learn, act, succeed, repeat, right? Failure doesn't have to be the end. It's just part of that process. When you fail, it just means you're pushing your limits. You're stepping outside of your comfort zone. Every time you do that, you're gaining insight, resilience, wisdom. So learn, act, fail, repeat. That can eventually lead to learn, succeed, repeat.
That's it. And the succeed, as you said, you get insight, you get wisdom each time you fail because you get to know why you're failing and
That's exactly right.
fix the why.
Failure is how you grow, right? Whether it's recovery, leadership, life, whatever it is. If you fail, that's how you grow. But you have to learn from it. If you fail and
That's
you
it.
stop, you failed. If you fail and you stop, that's it. But if you're able to question yourself, why did that happen? Why did that not work out? Right? That's how we learn. That's how we grow. And then eventually it leads to success.
That's it, 100%. And just touching on what you said about what you can do to transform your life, you said we have to educate ourselves. Because I'm a mentor myself, I find that it's easier said when people have to go and find resources and educate themselves. I just wanted to chip in. I mean, obviously, it's true what you said, but I just wanted to chip in the fact that it's so important for people to find a mentor, I think, because sometimes they wouldn't even know where to search or where to find that information or how to educate themselves. And I think that's where I sort of come in and then to, kind of help people because I'm a life mentor myself and I can direct them to the resources, the education, the kind of mindset shift that they need. So I just wanted to chip that in with the list of things that you just shared with us, which are very powerful. Thank you.
Yep. You're exactly right. Finding
Thank you.
someone exactly like yourself that can help give some guidance, steer them in a direction. But
That's
then it's
it.
on them to take action, right? You can only do much. Hey, I
100%.
pointed you in this direction and I gave you these resources. Now it's on you to take the next step.
That's it. And it kind of almost ties in with this recovery addiction that you work in because you still give them guidance. But like you said, it has to be that intrinsic power, that desire to change. And I think it's the same thing with mentoring. You can give them all the tools, all the information, but they can still decide to stick with that same mindset that doesn't make them successful in life. Yeah,
I
that's
think
it.
when they're about to do something and it's uncomfortable and they're starting to feel the nerves or they kind of got that feeling in their stomach or right, they got the anxiety building up to it. That's a good thing. That means you're stepping outside your comfort zone. That means you're pushing those limits, pushing those boundaries. And what's about to happen? You're about to grow. You're about to learn, right? Now you may fail. That's okay. As long as we learn from it, right? It's good to push those boundaries so that we can fail and we can learn from them. And ultimately, it makes us a better individual.
100%. I mean, that's the only fear I believe that's a good fear. The fear of getting into the unknown because you're growing, because it's something new. That's right. Yeah. So, and my next question to you, Trent, what's one powerful question you ask your patients that helps unlock breakthrough thinking or deeper self-awareness? What do you ask them? The one powerful question.
specifically to my patients,
Mhm.
what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Listen to me here,
Mm.
right? And that's how I talk to them. I talk to them just like we're talking right now. And when I start
Awesome.
seeing that
That sounds good.
hesitancy, yeah, and I start seeing that hesitancy, or you can kind of see the question mark that's coming. They got an eyebrow raising, like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can trust what you're saying.
Mm,
Like, hey, what's the worst thing that's going to happen here? So here I am, licensed professional that's treated,
mhm,
tons and tons and tons of patients. And I'm giving you the best advice that I know to give you here, right? It's evidence based, it's science backed. I've seen it in my personal practice hundreds or even thousands of times. So, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You lose a few days and then you go right back to where you were? Meaning, when I say lose a few days, I mean of progress, or
I
you're
understand.
uncomfortable for a couple of days, and then we go right back to the exact same place you're at right now when we're having this conversation. So you've been living this cycle for 8 years, let's say, and now we're worried about devoting 3 days or 7 days to give something new a try that I'm telling you is going to work, right? I'm telling you it's going to happen, it's going to work. So what's the worst thing that's going to happen? We'll just talk about it next week and we'll divert and go a different way if it doesn't work out. So yeah, and that's exactly how I talk to them. I try to be very personable, and I can't speak to them as a friend, but I
Mhm.
close to that clinician friend relationship as I can have. And for the most part, it's pretty well received.
I mean, I love that. It's very reflective. I mean, it gets them thinking because up until they meet you, I'm sure they kind of have a closed mind and especially stuck in the things that they're experiencing already. So I love that. It's very reflective and it gets them thinking, okay, I've been in this place, in this hellhole, if you could put it that way. So what is
Yeah.
the worst that could happen? Especially like you said, any ex-convicts and people like that.
I
Awesome.
think it's all
Thank
about
you.
empowerment. I
Yeah.
try to empower, and I think you're doing the same with your podcast, with the mentorship, with everything that you do
Mhm.
and are currently doing, right? We're trying to empower these individuals to
That's it.
change this thought process, to broaden the way that they think of it. So my book, The Recovery Tool Belt, I mean, that's exactly what we're doing in
Okay.
that it's all about empowering, right? And that's why it's the
Awesome.
recovery tool belt, because it's full of tools. That's all I do. I give you
Tools
tools.
for recovery.
That's right. If all you've got a hammer, everything's a nail. And so if you all of a sudden you've got the tools for the job, you can do a lot better job at that, or at least make it a lot easier. That final outcome will probably be a little better. And so that's what the recovery tool belt's all about. It's just a bunch of tools that are in there.
Thank you. Well, you've already jumped into my question about the recovery tool belt. Okay. So, yes, because I was going to ask you if you could give us like one or two or three, probably, tools that people can use without maybe exposing too much, because I will at the end ask people to purchase your book wherever it can be found. But if you could give us
Yeah,
one or two tools that you could share with our audience, please.
of course. Yeah, sure. Let's see. So one of the chapters is titled Healing with Hobbies, Habits, and Interest. Now, even if we took the healing part off and we only talked about hobbies, habits, and interest, I think that could apply to anybody, anywhere, for anything they're trying to do. And it really comes down to discipline and routine, things like that. And so in the book, I go into developing routines, daily routines, weekly routines, where you can check in, you can evaluate. And it's a lot easier to follow if you've got this routine instead of just kind of off the cuff, trying to wing it and get through the day, right? I think that, look, if you're a business professional and then you've got a schedule you can follow, it's probably going to be a little more successful. If you've
That's it.
got a routine
A
time that
lot more successful.
yeah, yeah. If you've got a routine time that you try to go to the gym, I think it's in the long run, if you look over the week or the month or the year, you're probably gonna hit those gym days more often if you can stick with that routine schedule instead of just,
Mhm,
well, we'll see what happens for the day, right? So
mhm.
establishing that I think is gonna make life a lot easier. And anyways, I go into that in the book. I do want to say before finishing the question, so hey, this
Okay.
book is a super easy read. It was written to be that way. It's not, you don't have to have a doctorate degree to understand the book. There's no big medical words or anything. At least I did as few as
That's
I
really good.
possibly could in the book. Yes, it's meant to be an easy read. It's
Mhm.
entertaining. There's a little bit of humor in there, right? A little bit of comic relief to try to
Okay.
engage. Again, it's just full of tips, tricks that I'm just trying to help these folks out. Someone that's struggling, if you're a loved one that knows somebody obviously that's struggling, if you can gain one thing out of the book, it could potentially change or save a life. Or you could learn, I don't know, 25 things out of the book, anywhere in between. Okay. back
and
onto
then
it.
completely transform your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's see.
One more.
Yeah, one more. Look, I mean, I don't even know. I go into the importance of quality of sleep, financial
Okay.
management that comes in there.
Right.
Sorry, I'm just trying to run here off of.
Oh yeah, not all right. I think I like the financial management part. If you just give us a little tip on the financial management, then we'll run with that.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
financial management. Look, oftentimes a lot of my patients get a huge pay raise because, well, they're not spending money on buying a 30 pack of beer anymore. And they have extra time, or they could even, again, increase their skill set, go get it overtime, or pick up a
Mhm.
second job, things like that. So I'll tell you what, I'll give you a different one. So in the book, I talk about knowledge is not power. You know, you hear the slogan, the saying, knowledge is power. I disagree. I think that knowledge is potential power. So
I
this is going to
agree. I
come.
agree with you on that one.
Yeah, this is gonna come
Yeah.
right back into what we've already talked about. You've got to take action, right? And that's why you and I are trying to empower these folks. So, knowledge isn't power, it's potential power. What does that mean? Well, hey, if you learn something, if yourself or myself or anybody gives information to someone, they now have
Hmm.
this newfound, this newly acquired knowledge. If you don't take action on it, it's a waste. And honestly, I would say it's even worse because now you have the knowledge, but you never acted upon it.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so I touch on that a few times throughout the book, and I think that that
Okay.
could apply to anybody, anywhere, in any stage.
Okay. I mean, I've heard it this way that, well, in terms of wisdom, that wisdom is knowing how to apply the knowledge that you have.
There
So,
you
like you
go.
said, you can have the knowledge, but if you don't apply it, it's of no use. So, when you do apply it, that means that you've got wisdom. Wisdom
Love it.
is knowing how to apply the knowledge. That's it.
Yep.
So, I'm going to get to my last question now, which is what does Beyond Limits mean to you? Not just as a podcast name, but as a life philosophy. And what legacy do you hope to leave through your work and your voice?
Beyond limits to me is pushing beyond boundaries. I think that so often we tend to put ourselves in a box. We put these
Hmm.
boundaries upon ourselves, and that can be a product of many things: environment, the people that we're around, our current financial situation, our education, our geographic location. There's so many things, right?
Past experiences,
Absolutely.
trauma. Yeah.
Absolute trauma, absolute I mean, substance abuse, like we've talked so much about over the last 30, 40 minutes here, but I don't think that you have to accept that. I don't think that it's a fixed box. I think that, well, you can break through those boundaries. You could push through them, right? You can go beyond your limits. And so I think that resilience is a huge part of that. Grit is
Hmm.
one of my favorite words, actually. Grit is huge, to have
Yeah.
grit. But you know, you don't just recover from those setbacks. You learn from them. You expect setbacks and just use them as stepping stones.
That's it.
Look, you can
I
defy the limit.
100% agree with you because it's actually a little tiny piece of my framework that I use in my workshops, which is using those things as stepping stones. It's so
Yeah.
powerful. Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people get stuck, as you said, in those boxes, I mean, in those cages, which is in their mindset. But I think that using them as stepping stones. You see, people, I think they're kind of afraid, which is why I love the question that you ask your patients. What is the worst that could happen? So people don't use those traumas and those experiences as stepping stones because they're unsure of the future and they're unsure of what could happen if I step out of this pain, this trauma, this addiction, this bad experience, because that's what they've known for most of their lives. So that's all they've ever known. Yeah.
Yeah, man, we've touched on so many good things here. Look,
Yeah.
guys, again, I think you just got to put yourself out there and know the compound effect of your effort. I'm telling you, over time, time is, who knows? It's variable. It could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a year, it could be 10 years. But if you'll stay consistent with it and continue to put in meaningful effort, and I don't mean just spinning your wheels, right? We're talking about effort that is meaningful here, something that is good, that's positive, that's pushing those limits. It compounds over time. And
That's
anything
it.
that you want to achieve, I mean, well, let me backtrack. Maybe not anything you want to achieve, but I'll say to reframe that thinking to the limit that maybe you've put on yourself, you can blow through that. And then the time frame that it can happen can just be so fast too. Yeah. People are truly remarkable.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So, your wonderful book, where can people find this book? If you could please share with
Everywhere.
us
Amazon. Most
the
people are probably
platforms.
gonna buy it on Amazon. So it's called The
Amazon.
Recovery Tool Belt. I'll hold it up. I've got a cover or a copy
Awesome.
here.
Thank you. Barnes
Yeah.
and Nobles.
Barnes and Noble, books.com, Amazon. We've got the paperback. We've got the
Okay.
electronic version for like Kindle and things like that.
Site
Anywhere.
as well, I believe.
The website. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's on
Okay.
my personal
Awesome.
website, thetrentcarter.com.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Trent. Thank you. It was lovely having you on Mind Capsules. And I believe our audience are going to benefit so much from what you shared with us. I mean, I personally, I love the way everything sort of intertwines because at the end of the day, whether it's addiction, whether it's trauma or just life, people do need all these tools. And yes, I'll get a book myself. I'll get a copy and I'll be sure to tag you on my LinkedIn. And are you on Instagram?
Thank you
You're
so
on Instagram
much.
as
I
well.
really appreciate that.
Are you on Instagram as
Yes, yeah,
well?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Instagram,
Okay.
Facebook, that's the Trent Carter is my
Okay.
personal. And then for anybody that's interested in, the company where we do all this amazing work, it's Renew Health. And
Okay.
we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere there as well. And last little nugget here. So for anybody
Okay.
that again is struggling or a loved one, there is so much valuable free content information that's on my website renewhealth.com. We
Awesome.
post daily, sometimes multiple times a day about any topic you can think of. You just go in there and search it. And look, everything that we've posted is credible, is backed, right? It's not something that we just pulled out that sounds good. It's the most up-to-date evidence that we have currently. So, anyways, there's a wealth of information on there for anybody that's looking for resources.
Thank you very much, Trent. And this is my very last question. It wasn't on the list, but I just wanted to find out, would you think of branching to England in the future to bring your work, your business over to England?
I don't see why not.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it.
Yes,
I will say
please.
this,
Yeah.
the book that we just talked about, I mean, it is worldwide. This book is not just in the States, it's not just New Mexico, it's not just North America, and it was written intentionally to be that way for anybody,
Okay.
anywhere. It can be a resource. Maybe not every single thing in the book is going to apply to any one individual, but I promise anybody can pick it up and find something valuable no matter where you're located.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Trent. Yeah, so thank you very much for coming on to the podcast. We're very honored to have you. Thank you. So
Thank you
do
so
take
much. It
care,
was a
and
blast.
I'll be sure
Thank
to
you.
tag everybody, your website, your Instagram page, everywhere.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Trent. Take care now. Bye bye.